guys are old enough, they will be reunited with Mom in the flight cage, and they'll be released where she came from.
You are listening to Urban Wildlife Podcast.
Hey, podcast listeners, I just wanted to jump in here really quick because since Tony's interview with Stephanie and Evan, we have gotten a patreon.com account, patreon.com/urbanwildlifecast, where we're raising a little bit of money for some better microphones to improve your listening experience. Thank you.
This is what they look like at 15 days. And then at 6 weeks, they're juveniles, 8 weeks, they're adults, and they're getting ready to go flying in the flight cage.
Could you tell me the story of how you came across these particular bats here?
These two, their mom was brought in to us in the winter. She was stuck to a glue trap. She had been there for quite a few days. She was really emaciated, extremely dehydrated. And something that we're seeing that reoccurs when bats are stuck to glue traps is the tips of their third wings dry, and they basically fall off, so they lose the function of the tip of their third finger, not third wing. And with her, she was in captivity. She was doing fine. We noticed that she was getting plump. Kind of too late to release her. Plus, she was trying to recover from her injuries. And when she gave birth, we made sure, she was on antibiotics before birth. And then in the third trimester, we took her off antibiotics to not prevent from harming the fetus. And she gave birth. Everything seemed great. And then 2 days later, she stopped lactating. So the male, this is the boy, he was found hanging away from mom, which is not normal for pups with their firstborn. They cling to mom for the first week and a half of life. And the female pup, which is still in there, she was hanging on mom, but she's
all wrapped up.
Yeah, she's cozy in her little burrito. She was still hanging on mom, but mom wasn't lactating. So we made a decision to take her away from mom and raise both of them. And then we treated mom with antibiotics, and she has made a full recovery. So when these guys are old enough, they will be reunited with mom in the flight cage, and they'll be released where she came from. So that's our ultimate goal. We usually typically get them around the second week of June. Last year we had 30. I know it sounds adorable, but it's not when you're waking up every 2 hours. Her and her brother, they're twins. They're 15 days old today. So they grew. When they were babies, we took them, she weighs yesterday they weighed 8.5 grams. So they have a little less than half their weight to go yet. But when we started raising them, they were about 2.9 grams. You can see her suckling. Her little bottom lip quivers.
They're actually cute.
They are, and they love to stay clean. So a bat that's not clean is either injured. Bats are, people don't think about it, but even being dehydrated, they don't have enough energy to fly and do what they do. We have around 10 non-releasable bats right now, and they're so funny in the morning when the sun's coming in. It's so beautiful. It's just the sun came up, they start grooming and they put their wings out and clean themselves. It's so cool.
I guess that lends to the story about vampires because you're meticulous.
Vampires are one of the most social species out there. It's very strange that if a vampire bat mom dies, she's fallen asleep.
That's amazing.
Another female will come and take care of that baby. So they're very social, and they're very, people, they get a bad rap. They're not that big.
That's so cool.
But they're really cool looking too. Yeah, she's snoozing. Look at that. She's like, good night. Have a full belly.
Hello, welcome to the Urban Wildlife Podcast. So I would like our guests to say their names and who they represent, so we have it on record. I'll start with you, our main guest.
Yay! Stephanie Stronczyk. I'm the president and founder of Pennsylvania Bat Rescue.
And Evan Lovett. I am the co-founder and director of Vert Creative.
And we already did a podcast episode with Evan, and that kind of got the ball rolling on some collaborations between Evan and me at work. I'm actually at Cops Creek Environmental Center right now, and Evan just dropped off some paintings that we will be displaying, and his group did 2 sessions of a kids painting class here that was ridiculously successful, and we hope to bring back when he brought it in. We didn't, the Environmental Center is new to being in a city system, and we're kind of starting from scratch with getting people out for events. So I said, well, I think we'll get between 4 and 14, and we end up having to turn people away from it.
Yeah, we had over 25 for each class.
Yeah,
So the starter brush classes.
And more than that, it would be too much to handle at once, and plus materials. So that was awesome. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more with him. But right now we have Stephanie with the Bat Rescue, and I am very excited. I am a birder. That's my main thing, as you all know, our listeners know. But I don't like to think of myself as one trick pony. And I got a bat detector. Ordered one for the environmental centers, and our bat programs are very popular. Actually, the Wissahickons are more than Cops Creek, which is unfortunate because we actually get way more species of bat at Cops Creek than in Wissahickon. Perhaps you can answer that why that might be. But I'd like to know about your organization, how it got started, and what exactly you do. I don't know if you want to just go on a spiel, or may have me ask you questions along the way.
You can ask questions along the way because I'm very forgetful and I don't always.
Well, when did you start your organization?
So we were sub-permitting under ARC Wildlife. They're based in Chalfont, which is Bucks County. I sub-permitted under them for quite a few years. I felt like a bird in a sense, where eventually I became a fledgling, and they're like, okay, you need to go get your permits. And I was like, oh, but I really don't want to. And then we actually got permitted, licensed through the Pennsylvania Game Commission October 31st of 2017. So I've been doing bat rehabilitation here in Pennsylvania for, I would say, 5 or 6 years. And then I did bat rehabilitation out in San Diego, California for several years.
And how big is your operation? Do you have employees, or is it one person show? How's it work?
So our rescue organization is actually a nonprofit organization. So we're all volunteers, every single one of us, even I am. We don't get paid to do what we do. We don't get money or grants from government agencies or anything like that. So we're not funded through them. Everything we receive is donations from the public or programs, school programs that we do. And we actually, all of the rehabilitators, our interns, our volunteers, all have full-time jobs on top of what we do. So it's very difficult, but it's our dedication, so.
How many bats do you, well, what exactly is Bat Rescue? Where are the bats coming from? How are you encountering them generally? And how many do you deal with a year, do you think, on average?
So our rescue in the past year has received over 200, but every year that progressively grows, and it's probably either due to people being more adventurous and spotting bats that are in need of help, as well as our organization getting more publicity. Basically what rescue entails is any bat that's found on the ground pretty much needs some sort of help, whether it be a day or a few months long, or if it has injuries. Bats don't live on the ground. So if they're found, people will call the Game Commission, and then they'll refer them to most likely us. We also get bats that are cat caught in people's houses. We don't do colony removal, which is something that you have to be licensed through the state in order to do. Bats are protected in a lot of different ways. And baby bats. We get a lot of orphan baby bats every year. So when it gets really hot, it gets kind of stressful for any species, but bats typically respond by pushing their babies off of them, because in a colony of bats it can be anywhere from 100 to 115 degrees. And that's pretty warm for the furred females, so they push the babies off, and unfortunately sometimes they fall, and then we get a call.
And when the bats that are abandoned, or are they generally, I would assume this is almost entirely man-made structures they're found in, because I don't think people probably aren't going into caves and like hollowed out trees, right, to find them.
We've actually had people cut down dead trees, and there'll be a silverhair in there, or a small colony of silverhair. A lot of tree species We do get as well like red bats, especially during the summer months where the females come back to give birth. The females migrate south, the males stay here over winter for the most part. The females will give birth, and then they look like a dead leaf because they're really interesting colored, but they camouflage very easily. However, blue jays can spot them in a split second, and if they see a bat in a tree, anything in a tree, they will become aggressive and attack it. So we get a lot of red bats that are attacked by blue jays and other birds that are territorial. And horays, we generally see them towards the end of summer. Some people will be walking on trails or we have a lot of birders in our county, and they will spot a bat hanging low on a bush, and they know that that's not normal, so they'll contact us as well.
Yeah, Bucks County is of the counties that surround Philly, probably the best for birding. It's
Yeah.
a really good birding community. In huge landfills that attract lots of gulls, lots of rare gulls, and lots of birders to go to those.
Yeah, we also have near us, we're in Berks County, and near us we have, I think it's White Marsh.
Yeah.
So a lot of birders go there too.
Yeah. Well, in Berks County, you also have the top end of it, or Hawk Mountain.
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, Berks is interesting because you get to probably the farthest reach of the Philly suburbs all the way to the mountains.
yeah, it's kind of one of those intermediate counties where
Yeah.
we actually, in our backyard, which is interesting, we had indigo buntings, a scarlet tanager, and I'm like trying to catch up on my bird species, but it was really interesting. We don't usually see them migrate through, and then the grosbeaks. So
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
it's my nerdiness.
And so, how much of these? And you're the only bat rescue operation like in Southeast Pennsylvania, right?
So we have about, I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me, but 32 or 33 licensed wildlife rehabilitators in the entire state of Pennsylvania. So some of those rehabilitators are also licensed to take rabies vector species, which is what bats fall into. We are the only ones that specialize only in bats. So we do get calls for other mammals and other rabies vector species. We refer them to our other rehabilitators, but we specialize in bats and the care of them. So I think it's very important to specialize sometimes in species, especially some that are difficult.
And they're low down on the rabies vector list, right? Like people inflate the fear of them with rabies a lot. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're not going to get rabies from just looking at an animal.
Yeah.
An animal has to bite you, and typically people are more inclined to try to illegally raise baby raccoons than they are illegally raising baby bats. So it's really important for the public to understand that, yes, they're cute and you're trying to help them, but I think the best thing to do in order to try and help them is contact a rehabilitator. And so raccoons are the number one rabies vector species as far as wildlife is concerned in Pennsylvania, and then domestic is cats, feral cats.
Overall, isn't cat number 2? Isn't it rabies? Is it raccoons then cats overall?
I think I was looking at the map from last year, and I think possibly feral cats surpassed raccoons, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
I know they're very close.
I thought it was when I read it last year was raccoons number 1, cats number 2, and it's crazy that people will, they're so afraid of bats that how are you gonna get rabies from a bat, right? Like, what do you reach into a cave and pick one up? I mean, I heard of a rabid beaver attacking a fisherman in Philly in a Pennington Park.
I heard that.
But when I asked further about it, they're like, "Oh yeah, he like poked it with his oar."
So he instigated.
Almost all these stories involve same with with snakes. With venomous snakes, almost all of someone tried to pick it up. Mm-hmm. But now we have these. But we have cats who are the number 2 rabies vector, and everybody. I mean, I do. I know better. And the cat, a friendly outdoor cat, will come up to me and I'll pet it, and I know better.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't pet a raccoon, even though I like raccoons a lot more. It still like gets me, but.
Yeah.
How much do you get of cat victims?
Cat caught bats we get a lot. Honestly, it's probably the biggest concern regarding wildlife rehabilitation across all species. Being that you're a birder, cats kill and attack a lot of birds, and they also do the same for bats. And cats are not a species that kill an animal just because they're hungry. They kill it for simply pleasure. And we get quite a few, and honestly, a lot of them don't make it because cats carry Pasteurellus bacteria in their mouth, and as soon as they scratch or bite even a person, you have to get treated with antibiotics. Well, in a small bat, that infection spreads very quickly. So a lot of our bats, if they don't die of the initial wound itself, sometimes if they don't get antibiotics in time, they'll die from bacterial infections.
That's terrible. How did you? So okay, you have some bat tattoos.
Some.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What came first? Like, did you work in rehab, wildlife rehab, and then encounter bats, and then get affinity for them, or did you love bats and seek out working in wildlife refuge so you could, help them, or something else?
It's a weird process. It was over decades. Looking back on it, I actually started loving bats when I was 7. My grandparents owned a 1700s house in the middle of nowhere, and there was a colony of the tricolored pipistrelles, or tricolored bats, and every summer they'd come back, and it was always females, and they would just look up, we'd look up, and they'd look down at us, and everything was fine. But there would be several times throughout the summer where my grandmother would have to retrieve a baby bat, and the whole colony was yelling at each other, all in distress, and she'd put her garden glove on and put the bat back up. And this is a 70, 80-year-old woman at the time, picking a bat up and putting it back, and then everybody was quiet. And it was just like that little gesture that she did repetitively kind of just stuck. And there was like no fear of any animal minus worms. I don't like worms. So it started when I was 7, and then I moved out to San Diego, and when I moved to a new house, we had this backyard, but in California it's like a backyard is 2 feet, and I'm like, why would I buy a lawnmower? So we adopted tortoises, and that kind of spiraled into getting involved with wildlife rehab out there. And they did the wildlife rehabilitation that I did out there, who I worked with, Project Wildlife. They took every species, including rabies vector, except bats. There was a gentleman that took the bats, and I was like, ooh, I want to know him. So that's how that started, and it was really interesting.
Let's get depressing for a minute here.
Oh no.
White nose syndrome.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll get uplifting. We talk about your mural. It seems like your work is more valuable than ever now that white nose syndrome has hit our area, because the individual lives of these bats probably mean more than ever now. Would you say that's the case? I'm sure you think they always do, but now the numbers are getting really knocked down. Could you talk to us a little bit about white nose syndrome and what it's done to our bat population?
Okay, so white nose syndrome is a fungal infection that naturally occurs in Europe. Cavers were researching in Europe, and then they came over to the United States, and they didn't decontaminate their equipment or their clothing, and the spores traveled on their equipment and clothing, and they went exploring in a cave in New York in 2006, and then it just, bats are very social, especially those species that are affected, and they travel all over the place when it comes to migrating and hibernating. And it has spread and killed millions of bats. But particularly in Pennsylvania, we are one of the hardest hit states. And so what happens is bats that go into hibernation, if the spores are found in that cave and they become infected with the fungus, it's kind of like cottage cheese or anything that develops spores and fungus. It's kind of like sunburn. Just think about like really bad sunburn where it hurts but it itches at the same time. And these bats are in a very, very, very deep sleep called torpor, where their heart rate slows down dramatically. Their immune system is suppressed. Their metabolism, heart rate, everything slows down to conserve energy for hibernation. And then this fungus kind of irritates them and it wakes them up. So all the fat that they stored to get them through all those months is now being burned up because they're active. And in order for them to, they're trying to groom this fungus off of them, their body temperature has to go from 40 degrees to 100 degrees. So they're burning up all that fat trying to get rid of this fungus, and they're itching themselves and scratching and grooming. And then they leave the cave early because they think, oh my God, my fat storage is completely gone. I need food, I need water. And they go out to the cave, the mouth of the cave, and it's the middle of January, and they starve to death because there's nothing to eat. There's no insects. That's the only main food source of our bats here in Pennsylvania. Or they dehydrate because there's no actual water. So they're trying to eat the snow to get some form of hydration. So that's basically what's going on. I went out with the Pennsylvania Game Commission biologist, the endangered mammal specialist. A few weeks ago, we swabbed a colony of Indiana bats. They're federally endangered. They've been endangered since the 70s. And then the little browns, and they had noticeable spores on them. So they were swabbing to research the viral, kind of isolate the virus that is associated with what's going on with
It's a
them.
fungus and a virus? Or?
They're thinking that it's quite a few different things.
Wow.
So we have to kind of leave it up to them to decipher what's really going on. So that's part of our mission. We're not just rehabilitation. We also educate the public and schools and do lots of programs, but we also do conservation. I feel like that's a huge part. If you're doing a particular species, it's important to know everything about it, including what's going on in the natural world in order to better what we do in our rehab. So we do everything.
And conservation, what are your conservation efforts you're involved in?
Well, we do the survey with the Game Commission every year, every summer, and then we do monitoring throughout the local areas. So we do telemetry where we use bat detectors and kind of figure out what species is in the area and affected by what's going on. There are known northern long-eared bats in our area, which is really amazing. They're almost locally extinct, so we monitor them every year. And we do some mist netting. Our intern is working on a project right now in Bucks County where she's mist netting. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Well, how can people support you? What's your contact and your website, Facebook? How do people get?
We have
Twitter?
all of it.
So what are your handles there? Social media contacts.
Pennsylvania Bat Rescue. You can search us on Facebook or Instagram. We also have pabatrescue.org. We are redoing the website, which is exciting, time-consuming but exciting. And donations. Donations help us to feed all the bats that we get. So we go through, in the summer, 40 to 50,000 mealworms a week. That's a hefty bill, and that's just the food consumption of the bats. That's not the medical care, and then everything else that goes involved with that. So donations are really appreciated, and you can find that information on our website.
And to raise awareness of the Bat Rescue, Vert is doing a mural, right?
Yeah, so through Vert, I've been working on a series of murals called Local Curves, which you guys, we talked about before on previous podcasts, where I'm depicting different animal species that live within our city limits or close to the city that people just might not be aware of. With the next mural being a bat, a large bat, I am trying to not only raise awareness that this animal exists, but also about the Pennsylvania Bat Rescue, so that more people know about the people doing everything they can to make a difference.
That's awesome. I think I told you, I was asked to submit art for a bat conservation show, and I took it a different direction. I made a planting, like in a nice ceramic, vessel. I forget. I guess a vase, but it's kind of like a planter. Somewhere between a vase and a planter. But I used plants that were traditionally pollinated by bats.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and a lot of the people submitting were, artists that have an interest in wildlife, but I'm more like a biologist that has somewhat of an
interest in art.
So I had a
Nice.
Signage associated with it, that talked about, and maybe people who came didn't know that bats are, for some plants the only pollinator or the primary pollinator of certain plants. So that was a good opportunity for education.
Typically, I work a normal 40 hours a week, and then I spend another 5 to 8 hours every single night and weekends with my bat rescue, doing cleaning and feeding. It's not all glamorous, so we do all the behind the non-fun things of rescue.
No, we need to get you.
So that takes a lot.
Yeah, we need to get you so this is your job.
And then, on top of that, I'm feeding babies every 2 hours. So baby bats are one of the hardest species to rehab, but they also require feedings more frequently than other species, like raccoons and things can go 4 hours or however long without feeding. No, I'm up at every 2 hours. So by the middle of July, I'm a zombie. Like, I have no idea what's going on. Yeah.
Wow.
Dedication or insanity, I'm not really sure which. Maybe a little bit of both.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that you really want to make sure we cover?
Right now, we have an Eagle Scout project going on. They're building a huge flight cage for us. We have an indoor flight cage right now, which is essential for the juveniles, so when they learn to fly, they're not injuring themselves. And then we have the outdoor one, and anybody that wants to donate to their supplies, because they're an Eagle Scout project, is more than welcome. They can get a hold of us through the website. And then pretty much our 10-year plan is to build a separate facility for the bats, and to expand our rehab. Because like I said, we get around 200 bats a year, and it's gradually increasing. So any donations would be appreciated.
Of the bats that come to you, what percentage of them make it out?
It differs from year to year, because some years you'll get more injured bats that you just can't save. But we've been working with our vet very closely on a lot of ailments that normally bats would be euthanized for. Like if they have a fractured radius or humerus, we're able to pin those now and to heal them, and then pull the pin out and do some rehabilitation and get them back out into the wild. My vet, Radnor Vet Clinic, they're amazing. He did a one-of-a-kind surgery for a bat that was found at Lake Nakamixon.
Radnor?
Radnor, yeah.
But you're in Bucks County?
I'm in Berks.
You're in Berks County. Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
so we
yeah.
travel pretty far. I mean,
wow.
All the veterinarians there are amazing. And so she fell behind this bat box, and she fell 2 stories. But when she fell, she didn't break any bones, which is normally what happens, but her jaw became dislocated. And we had her on a soft food diet for a while, and we did an x-ray at Radnor, and they said, her jaw is dislocated. And, we had the option of either euthanize or try a really interesting one-of-a-kind procedure. And obviously we're going to go for the procedure and, give her a chance. And so they cut open her around near her jaw and put a suture through her jaw. They reattached it and realigned it with a suture. And we did 6 weeks, I think, of therapy, and now she's eating by herself. This was a bat that could not eat by herself because her jaw was so misaligned. So it's amazing. We really go to extreme lengths to try to get them back out. Because as you said earlier, the bats are in severe decline.
Yeah.
So a majority of our bats we have 9 species in PA. 4 are being considered as, in the next 20 years, being locally extinct.
Wow.
That's a big deal, considering bats eat a lot of insects and a variety of insects. Obviously, they're known to eat a lot of mosquitoes, but really, mosquitoes are an appetizer for these large animals with high metabolisms. The tricolored bat can eat up to its body weight in food every night. And you think of that as a human, that's like us eating 100 and whatever pounds of food a night. So that's a lot of food. And they're burning it off just as quickly. And so some of the bats will eat stink bugs, native stink bugs, the invasive Japanese beetle. They'll all eat a variety of moths, leafhoppers, and some species eat mosquitoes, and they can eat up to 1,000 mosquito-sized insects in an hour in the summer. And that's just one bat. So they're pretty important, I think, for your ecosystem.
I have to say, when I came to visit your rescue and I got to watch you release a rehabilitative bat, it was really awesome. Not just see not to just watch the release itself, but your reaction to it and how happy and sad you were simultaneously.
It's a bittersweet moment.
Yeah, and it was awesome to like know that all the work that went into having this bat be able to survive again and take care of itself, and like it was
Thank
amazing.
you.
So I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
letting
We
me
appreciate
tag along with that.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming by. And
Yeah.
I mean, just you guys showing appreciation for what we do is a big deal, because we kind of get pushed under the radar, because bats kind of get demonized and criticized and all these crazy things. So
Evan's got to go. I think we covered a lot of this. I think we're good, right? I think we got this covered. I really appreciate you coming out. I really appreciate it. I got to see you feed some baby bats.
yeah.
Some big brown bats. I have an idea for fundraiser. There's a UFC fighter turned stand-up comedian who has a really successful podcast, and he's on has a show on Showtime, and it's Brendan Schaub, and his nickname is Big Brown. And
Really?
he does the Big Brown breakdown.
Oh my
and,
god.
And so you should get Big Brown to donate to save some Big Browns.
That would be awesome.
Or I could do a painting of a big brown with his face.
Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome. I have to reach out to him.
Yeah. You should just keep tagging.
You're not Big Brown until you have a bat.
Yeah.
Sorry. No,
Yeah.
just
Every time you do anything social media wise regarding big brown bats, you gotta tag him until eventually he figures it out. Yeah.
There you go. That's like 99% of what we do is Big Browns.
Yeah.
So.